Hello, everyone, and welcome to Picture This, a Big Brother Hometowns retrospective podcast, Season 4, Chapter 1, the Josh Gardner story.
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting one. Season 4, if you have not watched it, go and at least watch the first 3 episodes so that you know what you're doing or know what you're listening to when you listen to this particular chapter of the podcast. But Season 4 is an interesting one. We're going to get into it, but I'm your host, Josh Consalvo, as always, joined by my co-host, Mitchell Stokes. Mitchell, how are you?
I'm good, and I'd like to dedicate this video to any of my loyal fans out there. This little podcast that we're doing. I just, it's like one of the things that I kept jumping out to me as I was watching this was like all the crazy things and places that Jeff like did and where he was when he was like filming his videos, and then in the middle of like I think probably like the SEC tournament or something like that, and it was it was just so great. And then all of a sudden it was just like quiet, and he was like, "I'd like to dedicate this this video to all of my loyal fans." I was like,
I don't even know how to start because season 4 is highly regarded as the worst season in BBH history.
I know.
And I don't know if that's fair or not. I think when all is said and done of this particular project, it will likely land fairly low.
Yeah.
But this is one of those cases, and I did a lot of homework to prepare for this because I wanted to like try and remember or try and gather as much information as I could. So far I've watched I've watched the whole season, but I've also gone somewhat through GroupMe. I've watched some extra confessionals that were posted, and I also watched 2 like recap podcasts we did in season, one with Bradley and one with and partially one I watched with Max. So I'm trying to like put myself in the time that this happened, and and it was kind of all over the place. And I think that's what translates here is a season that's just kind of all over the place, mainly because of Josh at the beginning. And then I think in the next half of this, we're going to start to see some storyline focus in. But yeah, what was your watching experience like, at least up to this point?
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever watched BBH4 and I was so bored. So like and this was like because when the first time I watched it was on a binge, and I had watched 1 and then 2 and then 3, and I was just like so enamored with those seasons, and then this one came along and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And there's a lot that's like I think left. I think more so than some of the previous seasons. I do think that there's a lot left on the cutting room floor here in terms of what the true story was of like the lived experience. And going back this time, with a trying to have a more watchful eye, it's the same experience. I mean, I wasn't bored this time, honestly. I actually very much found myself enjoying the chaos of it all. But I was struggling to understand how we get places. Like, for example, like not to just jump too far ahead, but like how is Josh not backdoored in week 1? Like, I don't understand. Like those types of like questions that I have were things that I was watching. I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense given like the craziness of all these confessionals and what everybody's saying. And then it's just to make it make sense. Like, why did that not happen? And so I think it'll be great to talk through and try to understand some of the bigger context. But I think this is maybe like the first chaotic season. Where like it really is the whole idea of everybody was telling everyone everything is what it really seems like to me, and that always creates chaos and that always creates drama, which is fun. But if it's not translated well to confessionals and storytelling, then it's hard to kind of follow as a overall product.
Yeah, I think the rule that I'm going to live by here as we discuss this is kind of trying to paint with broad strokes as opposed to trying to figure out exactly what was going on, especially when it comes to Josh and especially comes to what he's doing, because every confessional you're like, what? So you just kind of have to accept him as a chaotic.
He is fully living in a completely different reality from what is existing in the game, and it's amazing, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful. I absolutely love
And
it.
there's more. I mean, there are dozens more Josh confessionals that exist out there somewhere. They just when you're editing a season, it's just is a little
Like,
exhausting.
how do you put this in there? Because
Yeah,
it's not
you
even
just
close
you
to
just
accurate.
throw it in and allow it to exist. But everything is revolving around him, though. At the same time, as much as he's living in this own universe of whatever he's
Mhm.
trying to do, everyone else is also trying to live in that universe because they're
Yeah.
trying to get on some same wavelength. I'm excited about a few different things that happen here to share that I can help
Yeah.
us get to piece together how Josh got himself in and out in the game, then quickly out of it. But yeah, and Josh was actually, just to jump into kind of like the 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 history of how we got to season 4,
Yeah.
which isn't really all that exciting. I think at this point we're starting to have momentum, and one season ends, and the next planning for the next one begins. But once again, this is the first season though where we we finally have some people from the org scene
Yeah.
infiltrate a little bit. It's slow, but it's coming in, and that really comes in the form of Max and Allie, obviously,
Mhm.
who were dating at the time, and that's going to be an important story for the season. I've talked about this before. I played Survivor Real Money Games, which Max Parsons, who's in the season, hosted. So that's kind of how I got in with Max, and so I was kind of dipping my toe in different pages and whatnot, and Allie applied as well, and then the rest of people are people that are connected to me in some form or fashion. I guess we'll play the word association game with these
Yeah,
people.
yeah, I didn't want us to get too far ahead because I do think it's so interesting though to stop and talk about like the organ infiltration of it all.
Yeah.
Like with specifically Max and Allie here. They come in and you can see in their confessionals they have just like a completely different mindset of how they're approaching. Like, Allie's one of her first confessionals that she's like, "Max is the only person I know on the cast." And that's like something like when you're in the org world, you're like, "Okay, yeah, who do I know? Who do I loosely have relationships to?" And they're coming in with that mindset versus the rest of the cast who's like, "Okay, oh, there's my friend from down the street. Like,
Right.
that's my buddy. Like,
Right.
we're here to play a fun game." Like, you know, and it's interesting to see kind of the world of like the hometown's origin matching with the org world, and even in a like landslide minority, of just the two of them, ultimately Max prevails, and Max and Allie really dictate a lot of what happens in the season. They utilize their skills from playing other games to do well here. It's very interesting as a thought piece to me, just to kind of like follow through. But yeah,
Well,
let's jump into.
one more thing. I was gonna
Oh
say
yeah, go.
I remember coming in to the season really worried about those two because like they don't know everyone, and I guess there's maybe one or two others that don't really know anyone, but I really wanted. This was important I think it's important for Max and Allie to have a good experience for the longevity of BBH at this point because they're the only two people that are coming from that world, and if
Mhm.
they have a bad experience, all they're gonna like go tell their friends, so to speak, is, oh yeah, that's just all Josh's friends over there, and we had no chance from the jump.
Right.
But that doesn't happen, which is very fortunate, I
Thank
think.
goodness. Yeah.
And yeah, so I was very worried about that coming in, but they're good players, so that helps, obviously. And Allie has a longer BBH career with us that we'll talk more about in seasons to come.
Yes.
Max is one and done because he wins the season.
Yeah.
Spoilers. So anyway, yes, let's go through them.
All right. Yeah. So just to remind everybody, we'll just do a fun little word association. First thing that comes to your head, rapid fire. We'll just go in introduction order.
Good. That's how I
And then
have them written
cool,
here.
cool. And if we want to like go back and talk through the introductions, I think we should because I want to know more about some of the prior relationships going into this. But let's jump into this. Drew.
uh, I thought had a real chance in this one.
Leah.
Um, villain.
Period.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff.
Peace.
I hate that every single time. My thing, I wrote down some things too. I said the largest diamond earrings I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Benny.
Um, I mean, yawn first of all, but like the first. Oh no, not the first. The second in the lineage of the Flanagan, DeSoto, Io,
True.
Louisiana,
Yeah.
family BBHers. So
Yeah. I don't think if we didn't have Benny, we probably don't have Sarah. Is that fair to say?
eh,
I know
yeah,
Tyler played, but
right, right. I don't think it's impossible that Sarah plays with or without Benny. I don't know.
okay. Thomas,
As nice as a human being as there could be.
Allie,
Um, a queen, but she talks so much.
Eric.
um, I have a lot of thoughts on Eric. I mean, Eric's one of my best friends. I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, and I'm not doing that. But I don't think he plays very well.
Oh, interesting, because I was gonna say screwed.
Yeah, I mean
But
that too. But I have some. We'll get to it.
Josh Gardner.
I mean, this is a whole podcast is dedicated to him. So what a tornado! Oh, a tidal wave, as he puts
Yeah.
it.
Kyle.
Um, sorry, I don't even know how to do this. So Kyle, unfortunately, was in an accident about a year ago and did not make it, and it was very sad. Kyle was one of my close friends for several years, so I don't want to like that to go unsaid that we miss
Sure.
Kyle very, very much. However, what a boring player, and he wouldn't hate me for saying that. Like
No,
you know.
no, fair. Max P.
Played a vengeful game. That's a theme for Max that I want us to be able to talk about. Very
Okay.
vengeful.
Taylor.
Admit who?
Who?
Yeah.
Mike.
Poor guy. Just didn't have a chance and was screwed as well.
And our second returning player, Sarah.
Guess who's back? It's me, Sarah.
Oh my gosh. When she came on the screen and she said, I'm not gonna lay low or play nice. I was like, girl, you better beat or early boot. Because I couldn't remember how she did, and I couldn't remember how far she made it this time, and I was like, girl, no, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, yeah. She no, Sarah's another interesting one to talk about. We had a lot of high praise for her in season 2.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of dig into what goes right, what goes wrong for Sarah. And I don't think she plays badly by any means.
No, I don't truthfully remember how like deep she makes. I haven't actually watched the second half of the season yet, but you know, it's hard being a returner. It's hard being a returner in a cast full of newbies. Did you specifically recruit Sarah and Drew to play, or did they just apply?
I think it's one of each. I think Drew just applied, and I believe that we recruited Sarah because Sarah was someone at the time. Actually, saw Sarah recently. Sarah at the time, I was seeing her a little more consistently, like and in a couple of those times, I think we put the bug in her ear, and then just kind of kept asking until she finally said she'd do it. So
Gotcha. Cool. I'm trying to look through my notes real quick. Oh, I think honestly, so the introductions I think is great to have them in the front. It just kind of reminds you who everybody is. And I'm just so sad that we didn't get more of Benny in the like episodes because he didn't really record any confessionals.
right,
But like his intro is so funny when he says, "I'm a big fan of oh
a
my
Big
god,
Brother.
what did I write? Oh, my handwriting is so bad. Oh my god. I'm a big fan of Big Brother. I'm a big fan of Josh Gonsalvo, and I'm an even bigger fan of winning. And I thought that was such a good line. Like it was such a
Yeah,
great opening. And I was thinking, man, it would have been great to see what kind of his perspective on the season was, how it was going, because he's gonna be there for a long
long
time.
time.
And we're not gonna hear a lot from him. And it's kind of similar to Sarah, the content we get from Sarah in season 6, where it's not
Right.
always the most consistent. to tell her own story. And so I wonder how the season would read if we had, the perspective of Benny throughout this.
Yeah, there's one confessional we'll get to in this episode, and then I think the most context we're gonna get from Benny's game is gonna be in the finale, as he's gonna get trounced in the final two. So yeah, Benny did a good job on the intro video. The other intro video that I always think is really funny is Drew's, and really any of Drew's content, never more than 8 seconds, ever. I don't know why he couldn't sit down and just like flesh out his thoughts at any point.
Right.
But in this opening intro video, he's just like, I'm back. I came pretty close to winning last time, and I'm ready to win this time. I'm like, in what world did you come close to winning, Drew? I'm close. What? You did not. I mean, like you played for a little while. You were mid-jury, I guess.
Yeah.
But
the path wasn't there. The path wasn't there.
Path wasn't there. But anyway, so I just found that funny. Leah talks about not knowing what she's doing, and that's a early theme for her that she sheds very quickly because she quickly figures out what she's doing.
And that's going to be a really fun evolution, I think, to track, because I do think there is a world where Leah gets to the end, she has a good shot to win, even though she goes
absolutely.
out she goes out at the end of this episode, at that end of this series of episodes. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it. I think she could have won, given the right circumstance. If she'd have taken Benny to the end, it was over. And Leah's the winner of BBH4. So
yep.
I'm excited to talk about her a lot this season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Leah is almost like the main storyteller here.
Mm-hmm. And she's so good at it.
Yeah.
She's so good she has so many great one-liners. She's so good at articulating her thoughts. We are going to see a lot through her eyes, and it's going to help. It's going to help us contextualize and give her flowers for the way she plays because of that. And so, any future players, if you're listening to this somehow, tell your story, because it is so important for the context overall at the end of the day. I want to ask you two things. Leah and Kyle both say in their intro videos about, we've been watching our friends play, we've been following the season. Are these your first fans, Josh? Are
yeah,
they your first what's it called when why it's escaping my head, like a super fan? Oh yeah, your first super fan.
My first super fans. Yeah, I guess so in some ways. I guess they would have had to be, because season 3 was the first season that had the viewing page, and so that's the only season that could have been watched in that way. And then so there's some people seeing it then, and then probably Leah had heard through the grapevine about some of the season 2 people who had played and whatnot. So yeah, just to contextualize, I feel like we always do this. What are the connections?
Yeah, please.
We still have, this is season 3 didn't have this as much, but season 2 had the big CKM contingent. If you didn't watch that season of the podcast, go back and check out season 2. It's one of our favorites. But you have Leah and Eric and Josh and Sarah that are all have worked for CKM, currently working for CKM, very connected in this season of life. So those are 4 right there. Benny is an outlier to that. And Mike is Josh's cousin. I don't know if that ever gets said.
There's something about they have a relationship. You're able to pick up on that, but that makes a lot that makes a lot of sense.
Mike is Josh's cousin, and they were living together at the time.
Yes.
So that clears that up. Drew knows Eric a little bit. And I thought Thomas and Jeff knew each other because they're both Clemson people, but I think they just both know Max, Teddy, that is. And so I don't think that they actually knew each other. Kyle didn't really know anyone. Max and Allie, of course. And I think that's about the web of connections. So there are connections here.
Is Taylor on his own?
Taylor is on his own. Taylor. So here's I mean, the Taylor story pretty quickly. Taylor was one of my. I guess I was. Yes, I was still at Aldersgate at the time. Taylor was one of my former students. And he was. You could probably see it. You see it in his intro video, or he talks about he works at Disney World. I think he still
Yeah.
works at Disney World to this day. And he just did not have the time to commit to this at all. Though there's a couple funny Taylor notes that I'll point out in order when we get there. So yeah, so that's kind of the web of the cast connections and where everyone is coming in. I guess yeah. So otherwise, Thomas and Jeff are kind of on their own too if they don't know each other.
Sure. It's
But
not insurmountable though. Like I
no,
mean, yes, there's those four people, but like we're gonna see really fast that those four people are going to not trust each other in the slightest. It almost feels like their real world connection hurts them a lot because you see a lot of um comments or confessionals about like I caught her recording me or he wouldn't show me his phone
yeah,
and like the screenshots of this and like the messages about like there was a lot of like distrust amongst those people who were seeing each other in real life because they were like they were trying to go about their normal relationships but then they're like it almost feels like worse than in the previous seasons where like because then like I think about like season um in season 2 you have Greg and Josh C, right? C is his
Justin.
Oh, sorry, not Josh, Justin. Yeah. You have them and they're like best friends who work together, see each other every day, and they're having like a blast, like negging each other. But they're not like it's not becoming like toxic.
Yeah, yeah.
like
There's no
like
animosity. Like there
yeah, yeah.
was, but like there was. Oh, it was
It was
always tongue
always
in cheek.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was always fun, right? Like this is like I can't believe he wouldn't show me his phone. That means we're not working together and I gotta
right,
get him
right,
out.
right.
It was crazy. It was so
Yeah.
wild.
Well, let's jump in. Episode 1 opens up with Leah. She's just kind of figuring things out quickly getting acclimated. As we said, she realized this is where she says game on snitches. There's a lot of scheming going on early in this game. People are kind of in game mode right away. The relationship building in the season is just like all built on game.
Mhm.
It feels like it's not like, hey, let me get to know you. It's like I've accepted that you're here in this space with me, and I'll get to know who you are along the way, but I'm not starting with a relationship. I'm starting with I want to work with you. Let's build it. We got to build an alliance, and things are moving quickly. The game is much shorter than it even is now at this point. So they're playing, and that's great. And so lots of scheming behind Leah's figuring it out. She says something like, "Oh, someone's already saying by name, whatever." And so she's quickly gets in game mode. Leah was built to play Big Brother. She was built for this game. If she was on television, she would play very, very well. I believe that she's a person that's just kind of built for something like this.
Yeah, she like I said earlier, is really good at articulating like her own story. She's really great at telling her own narrative. But like the thing that overall just throughout like the first couple minutes of this first episode that really jumps out to me is this idea of like alliances are made and broken here like without any thought. That's what it really feels like. And I know you said that there's no like it just jumps in at the game and I think when you do that you run the risk of you know that nobody has a loyalty to you. If they don't know you, if they don't have like a personal connection to you, they don't feel like they can actually trust you. It's just built on the game. Then yeah, this is why you see like, oh, we have the alliance of 7, the alliance of 5 that becomes the alliance of 4. You have like the 3-person alliance that's leaked, and then people are adding people to chats. Like there's so much chaos going on, and maybe that's because they didn't take the time to like
Right.
actually suss out like who they would want to like work with long term. And I think as we see the first couple episodes go by here, you're going to see people being like, oh yeah, no, that person is actually not valuable to my
Right.
game. I can't believe I trusted them so much in the first 10 minutes of this game. Um, and because I feel like every time someone pops on a confessional, there's like a new alliance that they're talking about
Right.
and then like the next person comes on and it's like, okay, that alliance is dead now. And it's like, wait, what happened?
Right, right. I mean, that happens a lot. I mean, it's going to be really hard for us in the season to like often early on where and we've done I feel like a good job in the first 3 seasons of being like, okay, here are the groups, here's these people are against these people, they're coming after him, and it's evident because they put that person on the block. And you can say, or it's evident because in the plague they did this and this. Here it's it's you're not gonna there's gonna be one story that I can tell through the plague of how something kind of came crashing down. But otherwise, like, you know, Allie comes in to come through a couple more confessionals, introduces the idea of Max and Allie, how they're dating. This is, like I said, will be important later. She brings up a potential all-girls alliance of an Allie, Leah, and Sarah. That's not going to hold a whole lot of water.
No.
Then there's talk about Josh. I mean, there's tons of talk about Josh, but like talk about this 7-person alliance. I remember early on, Josh was like, I think at one point Josh literally wanted a singular alliance with every person on the cast, like one alliance that has everyone in it. I'm like, Josh, you can't. This is not going to work.
That's not how that works.
One thing I just thought of that I meant to say early on, and I didn't, just for historical context. This season was supposed to have another person on it, and that person was supposed to be Melody. Melody was going to play season 4, but bailed like last minute, so we didn't replace that spot. We just ran it without her. So anyway, just for context, we almost had Melody in back-to-back seasons, but we did not. So anyway, yeah, this big 7-person alliance. I don't even know who's in that, but I think at one point he wanted just everyone to be in his alliance, because he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So yeah, lots of just where the alliance is, not really sure where they stop and start.
Let's break down the ones that we can talk about. Like you already talked about the girls, which is great. Josh gives us a confessional talking about the one hand, which is Jeff, Josh, Max, Allie, and Drew. Allie talks about the one hand, but also talks about an alliance chat with Mike, Josh, herself, Leah, and Sarah. And then right after that happens, Josh is kicked out of the one hand. So within the first like day and a half.
So I can contextualize what happened there.
Please.
So a couple. I would not. I did my homework, so I went through GroupMe and I found the one hand group message. I wasn't in every group message in the season, but I was in a good bit of them. I was in this one, in the one hand, and it just got ugly so fast. So it starts with the plague. The plague is going to help us out with a few things here. The format of the plague this season was the first person who was drawn, instead of getting safety, they were plagued and they got a secret advantage. I don't think people knew that. I think just that person knew that. That person was Taylor. So Taylor actually has an advantage. He has a basically called it the pendant of protection. I even have it here. It says, once up until the final 8, you may declare yourself or any other house guest safe from eviction. Just a simple immunity idol type thing. So whoever gets plagued in this would then vaccinate someone else. So if you hear the word vaccinate, that means they were giving someone else safety for the round. So it was one of those.
And this was pre-COVID.
Yeah,
so
pre-COVID.
Like, it threw me. It for a second, it really threw me. I was because someone's like, Josh was like, now that I have my vaccine, I was like, working, get that vaccine. And then I was like, wait, season 7 was the COVID season.
Yeah. So that's why you said before, why didn't they backdoor Josh round 1? They could not. He was safe. So anyway, so Tag to
Wait,
Tag.
he was safe?
Yes, because if you get the vaccine, you are safe, and then you plague someone else.
Oh, it was like alternating. Gotcha.
Yeah, it went back and forth. So Taylor got plagued. So he's eligible for eviction. He saves Max. Max.
I wish somebody would have said that. Give me a confessional.
Yeah.
Somebody give me a confessional.
Taylor saves Max. Max plagues Mike. Mike saves Allie. So you see that kind of Mike Allie alliance thing happen. Then Allie plagues Eric. and Eric is his own other thing that we'll talk about. Eric vaccinates Leah, which is really interesting to me. Very interesting to me that he saves Leah. Because, like, I mean, eventually Eric takes out Leah, and I think Eric comes into this game not wanting to trust Leah in any way, shape, or form, but he gives her safety here. Really interesting. Leah plagues Jeff. Wouldn't surprise me if I don't know this, wouldn't surprise me if Jeff and Leah had a decent relationship even and was okay with this. But anyway, so Jeff now is like, okay, I have the one hand alliance. I can now control some of this here. And so he's like, okay, I'll save Josh. This is before we really knew how crazy this man was.
Right.
So Jeff saves Josh. And then this Josh Consolo, experiences stress at this point because I get a phone call from Josh Gardner. And he is like, I hate players like this. I just do. It's fun to talk about now, but Josh was kind of really difficult to host. But he calls me. He's like, all right. He tried to use production to his advantage as much as possible.
Production is not a strategy.
Yeah, and he tried to make production a strategy. And so he calls me. He's like, in the rules, like I made a video about the rules. In the rules, you did not say I had to choose someone. So like, what if I just don't pick anyone? And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, that is the game. You pick someone.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what if I don't pick anyone? And then I made the stupid mistake of saying out loud, I guess we'll just pick someone at random, which I was not going to actually do. I was not going to do that. But he heard me say that and used that as his excuse. For some reason, decided to plague Drew. Like, why is he plaguing Drew? The one person in an alliance chat that is active and moving. Now, of course, I don't know what he's thinking, but the reality is he's
insane.
Yeah. So he plagues Drew, and the one-hand group message, he tries to cover his tracks. He's trying to be like, oh, Josh said, blah, blah, blah. And literally there's a message. It made me laugh last night when I was reading it. Allie says, I don't care what Josh said. I was like, good. I was like, because this is all on him, Josh Gardner. And so he plagues Drew for whatever reason. They fight it out, blah, blah, blah. And Josh gets kicked out of the group.
It's so great.
Yeah.
So great. Okay, but the funny thing to me about this is that the end result of all of this, right? The one we just talked about, all these alliances, we talked about the people who are like moving and shaking it up, and we end up with a Thomas HOH, which I don't understand at all how there's all these alliances and Josh specifically is in all of these chats. And bro, you can't even get one of your people in power.
Right.
I don't understand.
Well, that's because he was too busy trying to overthink this and outthink this instead of just thinking about it. Instead of just playing thinking about how do I maximize what my result here is. He was like, how do I get out of the most trouble? And instead put himself in the absolute most trouble. And so to wrap up so then Drew has it. He saves Sarah, which is also interesting, I guess. Anyway, he saves Sarah.
Probably on the returning player.
Yeah. Sarah then plagues Benny, and so that puts Benny in the position. And here you have the three-headed, under the radar,
right?
In Benny, Kyle, and Thomas. And it's unfair to put Thomas in that category because Thomas plays a very strong game, but you have Benny and Kyle and Thomas, and so they must have probably worked out in some capacity for Thomas to get this HOH, like we said. Which I remember that day being like, Thomas, how did this? I also feel like, how did Thomas end up with this? But it's just because he was just nice.
Yeah, well, and see, here's the thing about Thomas, because we're gonna spoiler, we'll see him again, and in 8 he plays an incredibly strong game as well, but he's very unassuming. And that's his style of play. He is not going to freak out. He is not going to be the person who's pushing things forward. He's just going to kind of sit back and figure out how to react to them. And he does it super well. That's his play style. Something I cannot do, something that a lot of people cannot do, but he does it so well. And I think we see it. We're gonna see it throughout this season, and we're gonna see it in season 8 as well. With him just being like, okay, how do I respond to this? Like, I don't need to stress about dictating what's happening. I just need to be on the right side of my response to it, and I think he does that really well.
Yeah, and this is one of those cases where, and I've come around on the thought process of like, is being first HOH good or is it bad? I think it just depends on what you do with it.
Yeah.
You know, in 16 seasons of BBH, only one plague winner has gone on to win the season.
Yeah. But
and s-
nobody has been like second boot either.
right. That person always has like a
Longevity in
a
the game.
longevity in the game. And so this is one of those cases where this HOH was very good for Thomas. And the reason being is Thomas was, as a result of this, he was nice enough for no one to plague him, but he wasn't ingrained enough for anyone to save him. And
Right.
that's just exactly where Thomas was. And that ended up landing him HOH, which is kind of funny. But because of him being in that spot, he ends up really thriving off this HOH, and it thrusts him into the game. And now he has to play because of, oh, I'm HOH now. Like I have this responsibility all of a sudden. So now I can't just lay low and just have nice chats with people. I actually have to like do something with it. I think that this HOH propels a very good BBH career for Thomas Shirley.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you.
Confessional wise, we're not getting anything particularly interesting for a little bit here. Allie talks a lot about Josh. She says the word whack at least twice. Which is great. It's a great word to describe Josh. I don't know if that is I don't want to assume, but like, is that like Canadian slang? Do they say whack a lot?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I'm trying to think of what like part of the US like
it's very 90s.
Right.
It's very 90s.
So in any event, she calls Josh whack twice or three times, which is great. At this point, Jeff has kicked Josh out of the one hand. We start to hear from Sarah now, and pretty much every Sarah confessional up until Josh's eviction is centered around Josh.
She's pressed.
She is pressed. Yeah.
Pressed and obsessed, babe. She is pressed.
One thing that I've noticed Sarah do, and she does it later on, but I think she does it in this confessional now, and she did it in season 2, and I think I'm now just like, we talked about in season 2 how Sarah had a hard time calling these people her friends. She doesn't do that here, but what she does do is she loves to describe things in sets of 3 adjectives. She does that all the time. And like in season 2, she'd be like, I've made acquaintance, friends, rapport. Where is it? It's later on. I'll circle back to this because I have it written down, the 3 adjectives she uses later on, but I know she does it in this confessional as well. And it's just a funny like little quirk of Sarah that is enjoyable and very fun. Like certainly not poking fun at her, like just it's fun. So we have the Thomas HOH. So Max, we finally hear from Max, and Max starts to share some of the lies that Josh has told or whatever he's done. One of them, which is a really funny one, is the lie that, and I remember hearing this in confessional from Max for the first time. That's how much was going around. But Max says, "Oh, Josh is saying that I, Max Parsons, taught Josh Consalvo, me, how to play Big Brother." Which I don't like. The only connection is somehow Max hosted me, and somehow that morphed into Max taught Josh how to play Big Brother, which is such a strange lie. Like, what a strange thing. Like in context, it's just like, huh? Like, what do you mean taught? You taught him? What does that even mean? Like, and so that's funny. Max is obviously in Australia at this time. That's another interesting thing I was worried about for Max. He has had some experience playing org, so like he knew, that the org world revolves around the Eastern time zone, so he had to figure that out. But yeah, Max's story, unfortunately, is told enough in the season, but it's probably among the weaker winner stories that are going to get told through confessional in BBH history. But like when he gives confessionals, which he did give consistent confessionals. They're just okay though.
They're just fine. Yeah, they're like he's not the most dynamic speaker in terms of like, okay, I'm on camera. Like there's like sometimes like what I've loved about rewatching seasons 1, 2, and 3 is like they're on Big Brother.
Right.
Like they are like most of those people are committed to like I'm in the diary room. And when I play, that's how when I make confessionals, that's how I am. So I like that camera starts to roll and it's like, all right, time to be entertaining. And Max is just like, all right, here's what's going on, here's
Right.
what's happening. He's not the most dynamic confessional giver, and there's nothing wrong with that because he does clearly articulate his perspective and what's going on. It's just not always the most interesting thing. And like in the chaos of everything that's happening, I like the concept of like the strategy of Big Brother, like go to sleep for the first half of the season and then wake up on day 45 and play really hard. Like because of everything that's going on here, Max is really like a wolf in sheep's clothing in this season,
Mhm.
in that like he just is like, oh, these people are loony. I just need to stay like I'm just gonna stay chill. I'm gonna
Right. And he's
stay
going to
fine.
like press the buttons here,
Yeah,
like to make the like he talks about at a certain point later on that like Leah is doing some of the things that to accomplish some of the goals that Max has.
yeah,
That's I saw that confession. I was like, is this undermining Leah? I was like, no, not necessarily, because Leah like plays her very own strong, independent game.
yeah. He didn't make her do those things. He's
Right.
just happy that she's doing them.
Right, right. And sure, maybe planted some seeds here, or said the things, or talked through with Leah or Allie or whoever he's aligned with.
Right.
But and like I said earlier, Max plays a vengeful game, and I just remember that being a thing that like Max constantly did. Anytime he had a vendetta against somebody, he acted on it immediately. Which shouldn't win you Big Brother. It really shouldn't.
Right.
Because the nature of the game is such that if you make a move against someone else, especially someone that you maybe have a public dispute with, or people know that you have a thing against, that, and you knock that person out, that only leaves you as the piece for someone else to be like, oh, well, now Max is the biggest target. We
Right.
got to go after him. And Max avoids that
Yeah.
a lot throughout the season. So that's interesting. So we get to Thomas and his nominations, and he puts up Mike and Jeff. I'm not really sure why Jeff goes up here, because he hasn't proven to be like his competition
Yeah.
strength yet, because there hasn't been any. Not really. Mike makes sense because of being associated with Josh, and of course he has a limited pool of people to actually choose from. So he only had to remind you, he only has between Mike, Eric, Jeff, Drew, Benny. Yeah, so he only has those 5 options.
Right.
And Taylor to choose from, and for whatever reason he doesn't choose Taylor. Maybe they had talked a little bit in the little bit of communicating that Taylor did. That could have
Right.
been another option for him. So Mike and Jeff happen here. Then it cuts right to Jeff winning the power of veto when he's at that tournament, and there's this loud roar in the background, and it's kind of funny. And he of course uses the veto on himself.
And that blangin' diamond earring is
Yeah.
just shining in the light, baby.
It is blinging out. And so Drew then gets named as a replacement, which is also interesting. Maybe a little bit of a returning player threat.
Well, he certainly seemed to think that it was.
Right.
I mean, who knows? It's
Right.
just
Hard to really tell. Could have been a little bit of that. Could have just been like,
I
hey,
think,
Mike's gonna go out here. You're just the
yeah.
pawn, kind of thing. Like whatever.
I feel like Drew is like manifesting his own destiny, though. If he's like, oh, they're putting me on the block because I'm a returning player. Like, I don't think we have no context to believe that that's the case.
Yeah.
But other than Drew saying it, and it's just like sometimes sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We get in our own way because the way we perceive ourselves is it makes us view the game and the players and their actions incorrectly. And I do think that that's kind of what's going on here, because not one single time in any confessional, I believe, does anyone talk about the returning players?
Right.
Nobody cares
Right.
at
Right. And there's only
all.
two of them. So what's
Right.
to really care about?
It's not
And
like season 6 when we were on a witch hunt for the
yeah,
returning players. Like, it is not. It
Drew
is.
being one of them.
Yeah. Oh, and I got him out. Like, but like we were on a witch hunt for them because they were returning players. I don't get the sense from that at all from anybody going on here. So I think this is just kind of like a little bit manifest destiny
Yeah.
from Drew.
For sure. And so Mike ultimately goes out here. I think Mike just flew too close to the Josh Gardner son and went home pretty easily here.
Such a victim
And
of
he,
circumstance.
yeah,
Like,
very much a victim
honestly.
of circumstance. Josh, I remember the whole time it was like, Josh, are you protecting your cousin? Or are you against your cousin? I cannot figure it out because every minute it would change. And then there was the whole, oh, let me see your phone. Let me see your
Yeah, that was
phone.
crazy.
I'm like,
That was
let me see your no. Like, why?
If we were really aligned, you would give me your phone.
And we would strategize as if Josh wouldn't take screenshots, send them to himself, and send them everywhere. Josh sent so many screenshots. They used the app Marco Polo in the season. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that later. Like every day, Josh was some were real, most were fake. He was using screenshots from me to
Yeah.
throughout. It was just like, and this, Mike's a victim of circumstance here. Didn't really get a chance. And like I said, flew too close to the Josh Gardner son and got scorched as a result. One interesting vote here, which I think can open up a little bit of the conversation about Eric. Eric votes Drew out here, which is weird to me. It's been weird to me. It was weird to me then. It's weird to me now because Eric does have somewhat of a relationship with Drew. Like they knew each other, and Eric just plays this really cagey game where he thinks he's being really like overly thoughtful, but I think he's being like too overly cerebral and he's not actually like building things. Instead he's like keeping people at arm's length with his trust. Like he even says later in a confessional, like if someone's not your final two, like you have to like question that alliance. I'm like, Eric, you got to get further. Like there's more, like there's only 2 seats in that final 2, and there's however many people in the game. You have to have some trust with a handful of people. Like you worry about those kind of things later, and so that's how Drew, or Eric rather, plays the game. Unfortunately, is like he's just too overly thinky about who he trusts and who he doesn't, and therefore makes silly mistakes. Like tries to sends his vote to evict Drew here. Like why? Like there's no merit. That only hurts you. Because I think Drew does find out it's him, and they keep trying. Drew and Eric constantly try to work on their relationship in the game, which could have easily just been like such a strong bond for the two of them. Easily, there's nothing getting in their way other than I think Eric overthinking about Drew, which will be fun when we contrast that with the game of his wife, Kieran, in season 9, who plays a very different game than Eric does. But anyway, that's
down the road. It's funny that you say that, just because my experience as someone who only viewed the season, I didn't live through BBH4, so I don't have that context. I'm surprised to hear you, was surprised earlier when you said that he didn't play very well, from your opinion, because from his confessionals, he's so confident. He gives such good content in his confessionals, talking through what he's thinking. And I can totally get what you're saying about it being cagey, but as a viewer, you're like, it almost is like he's the he ultimately is like the first juror. And you're like, oh, he was robbed.
And there are some elements of that. Like when we get to Eric's eviction, there were some. It was really unfortunate. I think that there were mistakes made from a lot of people in Eric's eviction. I think that's an important one. And there are he was screwed in some ways, but I think he made his own bed in some other ways.
And that's fair. And that's just again, context I don't have. It's interesting to hear. I am surprised that his confessional self was so confident, but his game sense or his game self was more cagey. I find that very interesting, because sometimes I feel like that typically translates to the confessionals, but I didn't get a lot of that in his like speaking. So I
Right.
find that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so let's just keep going because we're gonna zoom through this just like the episode does, and in the next minute we're gonna talk about um, Jeff becomes HOH. He puts up Kyle and Taylor. Jeff wins the veto. He doesn't use it. That's 3 comps for Jeff. And then in a vote by 9-0, goodbye Taylor. So like you got 30 seconds left in this minute to tell us what happened to Taylor.
I don't. Here's the only thing I want to share about it, and it has nothing to do with he didn't play. That's what. But here's a very fun tidbit. I don't know how. This was the competition that you won your HOH on, where you like pick the boxes. It's like kind of like Deal or No Deal, but not. And Taylor won a second advantage in this competition. He won a block a vote. So he had a block a vote advantage and he had a safety advantage. And he went home with both of them, and that's
Iconic.
it. And then the advantages died.
Was he just like not online?
Yeah, he just was. His schedule just did not allow him at Disney World to like play. But it's so funny that he had 2 advantages, and they died with him.
All right, minute over. Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Like literally, there was so much juicy content in that first eviction, and then all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 bye, Taylor, goodbye. I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
I remember being very intentional in doing that. I'm like, I have nothing to share here. No one says that he has the advantages because no one knows.
Right?
Like he's just bye, see ya.
So funny.
It was over the course of a couple days. Like, the game was happening still. Josh was still doing this thing. And, Jeff mentions like in his veto video, he's like, I could do something with this. I got some information that I'm just going to bank for later.
Oh, that made me so mad. Why are you saying that? Because that wasn't a confessional.
No, that was his veto video.
Nomination. Yeah, that was his video to the house. It made me so. If I was a player, I would have been infuriated. As a viewer, I was like, I can't. I just like, what are you doing?
Jeff also a bad player. Frankly.
T.
I mean, we'll get Jeff again next season too. Episode 2, we have our first ever co-HOH, which was like I went back and found out what the competitions were. It was like they each had to do like one leg of it, whereas like there was a puzzle and then there was like I think maybe a house of cards or each one of them had to do something and the collective score, blah, blah, blah. And so Drew and Leah win this co-HOH, which is a fun little pairing. I think it was good for Drew in some ways, kind of gets him to have this like strategic relationship with Leah where they're both discussing their nominations. At this point, their 2 nominations kind of make some sense here. Drew puts up Thomas, tit for tat. At least
that's what he says.
That's what he says, right?
Yeah.
An easy front for whatever is actually going on behind the scenes, where Leah's probably doing a lot of dictating of what she wants to see happen here.
She gives an incredible line in her confessional where she says, I don't think I needed to win this HOH. I have 5 new pimples, diarrhea, and I need a Xanax. And I was like, that does not describe an org, playing an org like that. It was so good. I was laughing. I was cackling.
Very good. And Jeff goes on the block.
Sorry. Can I say, I think this is great for Leah too, because I think we're going to see a continuation of this like rise for her. Like she has some power now and like how she's going to like go about wielding it is very interesting. What she's doing. I think like she gets kind of like a bad swing at the double whenever she's ultimately evicted and it's just a little bit, but like, I think she's doing a lot of the right things that she needs to do to continue to set herself up to do well.
Right.
And yeah, and being co-HOH is great because you only have to nominate one person. Like it's honestly such a gift in a game.
Very rarely does the co-HOH find themselves in trouble afterwards. And Leah does here, but sure. Like I don't put a lot of stock in that. She handles this HOH really well. But puts Jeff up, which makes some sense. Jeff's won some competitions now. He's made himself a threat. There's probably a lot of underlying things going on behind the scenes that are hard to piece through. But for our sake, it's not much to think about. We see the game Jeff is playing. It is competition forward, and it is also like he got nicknamed the Godfather in this, and that's kind of how he's playing. He's trying to like Rob Cesternino this thing where he's like, I got my people and I'm protect my people at all costs. And if you betray the fam, you got to go.
Boston Rob.
Oh, I said Rob Cesternino. Oh, no,
I was like, that is not.
Wow, what a strange, what a weird Freudian slip there. Yeah, no, Boston Rob Mariano, also, and another Italian Rob last name, but yeah, Boston Rob rather, like, got my people. If you go against the family, you're out. Josh gets kicked out of the one hand, kind of like that. That's the style Jeff's playing here, so that can get you in trouble really quickly. There is. Oh, here we go. So, a couple things. There's 2 Sarah confessionals that are sandwiched around a Thomas confessional, but I'll talk about the Sarah ones. Sarah says a couple things that are interesting. One is that she's kind of looking to pick up Eric. And I'm like, this is good. And I remember at the time being like, yes, this is a pairing that is going to work so well. The problem is that they both like are KG players in some regard, like we talked about Eric. But they also like both have this like weird relationship with Leah that is pulling their trust away from the other person. Like, because Leah is good at kind of pitting people against each other, and she's doing that a little bit here with Sarah, with Eric, who would just, if they would just get on the same page, Sarah and Eric, same with Eric and Drew, but this is one of those pairings that really could have thrived. That could have been the Max and Bradley of season 5 before there was a Max and Bradley of season 5, and we'll talk about that next season, obviously. But I see her seeing like this confession is like, I'm looking to try and like build this with Eric. I'm like, this would be so good. And we'll talk more about that when they both kind of go out the door later on. But then the next confessional, this is where she uses the 3 adjectives. And she says, she's like, Josh, as you know, like things are getting intense, crazy, mixed up. She talks about how she thinks Jeff is cheating, which is great.
That was so funny. She was like, I want Jeff out and I want Josh out. Those are like her 2 targets. I had a thought about like how Sarah and Eric are both kind of the same in that they kind of both, to me, feel like I love using this phrase. They both feel like they're reinventing how the game is played. Yeah. Like they think that what they're doing is revolutionary to like orgs and like by being like nobody's touching me. Like nobody can see like what I'm doing. I'm such a like it's kind of like I call it newbie syndrome. Like a person who's playing their first game and thinks they're just running circles around everyone and they're not. But that's kind of like, and it is an interesting pairing if they would have gotten on the same page because they both kind of had that same mindset about the game, and they both were doing, to me, from my perspective, doing well and doing good things. Right. I think they're overestimating a little bit what they like were actually doing, like in the context of their influence on the season.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great assessment of what's kind of going on with the 2 of them. We have that Thomas confessional in the middle. Nothing super groundbreaking, but he does say that he's like, he got a chance to know Kyle a little bit more, and he wants to like work with Kyle. I think that's going to be important for Thomas. I think it's just these little things that once Thomas in the spotlight gets out of it, now let's get to work. Just one of the little things that Thomas does that makes him a good player. And I think that's good. We hear from Max. He's trying to fuel the Josh and Jeff feud, which is really funny because, that's an immovable object and a unstoppable force kind of thing. Like, let's get Jeff and Josh fighting even more and see what happens. And Max is kind of, like I said, pushing those buttons to make that happen. Also, Max talks about not trusting Eric, which I don't know how that started at all. I don't know. And I didn't know then, and I don't know now. Like, why Max has it out for Eric Hooker at all costs. Like I think he actively dislikes him, and I never understand why, because when they were talking, like they would act like they wanted to work together, but
Right.
they're just not having it. And this is the big point of revenge for Max, and he's going to be able to like have a reason for it in a minute when Eric is HOH. But
Right.
yeah, this is where it starts. Like,
Hard
all right,
before, yeah.
all right, Max doesn't like Eric, so okay. So once again, Jeff wins another power of veto, and Leah has some options here of what she wants to do. And in my mind, I'm pretty sure she talks about having someone else in mind that she might have put
Yeah.
up, and I think that person actually was Eric. I think,
Oh, interesting.
and I think it was, which would make some sense because Eric is going to take Leah out here in a minute. But I think that's part of like a bigger idea that Eric had, which we'll get to in a second. But she's like, all right, it's time. The story of Josh Gardner has to have an ending here. And yeah, and Josh has got to go.
And you know what? We were all worse off for it, because the season is going to take a nosedive. Because like, yes, I think like I talked about earlier with Max, but like also with Allie too. They're like, what have they been doing? Like, as what have they been doing in the game so far? Like, their feet are going to be held to the fire a little bit here in this next episode. And I think that's going to like kickstart them. And it is going to create some interesting conversation about like, how did they dominate the rest of this game? Like, and Leah to an extent about how the three of them really dominate the latter half of this game. But like, from an entertainment perspective, like we are going downhill from here. Like we have reached the peak. It is this Josh Gardner confessional that just sits in oblivion of delusion, and there's like everything that comes out of his mouth.
It's like
In
4
this
consecutive
section,
confessionals. Yeah.
yeah, I have zero context from anybody else in the episode that what he has said is something that actually happened. Like I think he's
Right.
lying to the viewers. Like
Yeah.
I like truly like there is a world where he's just like so delusional about what he's doing and how much fun I mean, that's what makes it fun, right? I know I'm saying he's delusional and that's like a mean spirited thing to say, but I'm living for Josh Gardner. I'm texting you yesterday, like, is he my favorite BBH villain of all time? Like I am living for this man and the delusion that he brings because he's having so much fun. And that's at the end of the game. At the end of the day, this is a game, right? And we as a production team now we want people to have the most fun that they can have. And so to see somebody who's just like absolutely enthralled with the experience that they're having and having an absolute blast, it's so fun, even if
Right.
it's completely horrible. And
Yeah.
he's terrible, like playing terribly. It is so fun to watch him just like say things, and then everybody's like, "That is no, like that's not
Yeah.
like this is not what's going on." He called himself an evil genius. Like,
Yeah.
come on, like he was just he was serving us content on a silver platter, and they just chopped his head off and sent us all and sent this season to the grave. Like honestly, like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure in the moment, like this is one of those things where it's like this is someone in the moment who's making your life as a host miserable,
And everyone's life in
probably.
the game.
Yeah, and people's life in the game, and they have to go.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna see this at several points in later future of BBH. Like they're just hard to be hosts. They're hard to host. They're hard to play with, and they gotta go.
Right.
And I get that, but we've talked about this a lot. There is a difference between the lived experience of the game and
Yeah.
the rewatchability of it in an episode format. And God bless, we lose out on the latter half of the season because we don't have Mr. Josh Gardner. So I'm gonna give him some flowers from one villain to another.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna send him some love and some affection because he was serving us and we were eating, and I was living for it.
So let's go through kind of all the things he talks about. So we talk this is just kind of the Josh section. There's a couple other people peppered in, but this is the Josh section. Talks about the whole like recorded video thing. You can't outspy a spy, he says. Josh and Sarah were both working in the same office together, and I think Josh intentionally out loud starts talking about the game
Right.
in whatever context, and Sarah tries to catch this on video, and
Yeah.
so Josh knows that
He like
Sarah is
sees her pull out her phone to start recording him.
right.
So he starts making things up.
Right.
Like it's just so good. It's so good.
Yeah. So there's like, I think four big shenanigans here. That's the first one. And Sarah and Josh both talk about, they both claim the other person knew, like, oh, I knew that they knew, but whatever. Like, when we have the fake cry to Leah, where he's like, he fakes tears about, I'm so hurt about all these people that I know and love, and this game is so hard. I don't know what I'm making up. Like, who knows what he said in this fake
I
cry to
don't think
Leah?
he could tell you today what he said.
No, I don't think he could tell you that day what he said. The third shenanigan is kind of this big overarching strategy that he's claiming. And he's claiming the, like, I'm gonna be annoying enough to get away with it. Basically playing that I'm such, like, the Connor Mills, I'm such a big
Yeah.
target that you want to keep me in this game. Like,
He was Philip shepherding himself.
yeah, and that works sometimes. It doesn't other times. He took it so far, like, just nonstop. That was the issue here. It just did not ever stop. This is where he said, I feel like a genius. I'm a genius. And he even says, well, he's like, I'm having so much fun. He's like, good. And then the other one,
he is like low rent Greg Wells.
Yeah. And I think that's what he was inspired by. Like, I think he saw Greg play the first time and was like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do this, but way better.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
He cannot. No. He cannot. I can't wait to talk about Greg again.
Oh, me too. Oh,
I really can't wait. Coming up soon, and it's probably already out if you're seeing this. Then the other thing is the whole Marco Polo story, which is really.
I remember that app. Did you ever use it?
Yeah, sometimes.
It was so fun. I like, let's bring it back, honestly.
Yeah, bring back Marco Polo. If you're unaware, Marco Polo is like, it's like
walkie-talkie.
Yeah, it's like a walkie-talkie app.
Voice memo.
Or like you take video to Snapchat-esque, but you can, like, go through and see the whole conversation that you're having. Every app does that in some capacity now. So, like, anyway, so they were using that. Everyone was using Marco Polo at this time, at least around these people, and they were talking to, like, Allie and Leah and maybe Max and Josh and whoever were having this conversation, and they were talking about Jeff. And Allie said, I was just doing my white girl, like, oh my god, he's so annoying, I hate him, like, act about Jeff. And Josh, being evil, like, truly evil, like, this is mean, like, this is mean to do, like, he's like saves the video and sends it to Jeff, like Jeff now knows that, quote unquote, Allie hates him. That is not good. That's not nice. Like, it's bad for Jeff's mental health, like, and so Allie has to cover the tracks and be like, I didn't mean it, like, whatever. And I think Jeff gets over it, because I think Jeff probably is crushing on Allie, if we're being honest. That's probably what's happening here. And because they work together in season 5 as well. So I don't want to go too far on that, but it probably is the case. There's, like, a lot of secret, like, crushes in the season. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Leah was crushing on Max at a point in time in the season, which is funny because it's around those two people that are dating each other, but no one knows it. And so, like, that gives the other people the ability to be like, oh, like, yeah, they're interesting. Like, I could, like, whatever, like, no shame.
I just love that you're out here exposing people's personal.
Heck yeah. I mean, what, like,
are they watching? Are you watching, Leah? No. Max,
if you were watching, if you were watching, DM me and I'll delete all of this. I will. But there's no shame in that. Like, have a crush. Like, who cares? Yeah.
That's so
So and then we get to the votes, which is unanimous for Josh. But I do want to point out one thing. This is more shade, but it's not like this isn't as bad. This is just funny. Allie's vote video. I don't know if you caught this. She's in her vote. She goes, as they say, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. That is not the saying. And so actually it's the other way around. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
But she's like, no, you got me twice, shame on you. You're out of here. And then Josh is evicted. It's not the last we hear from Josh. So actually, let's just jump into episode 3, and then we can close the book on Josh. We have a fifth shenanigan. Sorry, more shenanigans from Josh. He claims that Mike got to his phone, and in the the hours leading up to the vote, Mike starts sabotaging Josh. I think he claims Mike sent the video to Jeff. Mike sent screenshots to everyone. Mike sent all these crazy things to the house chat.
Right.
When everyone knows, and maybe it's not a lie, but everyone knows this was Josh.
Yeah.
He did it. No one else. And so, yeah, like
I love him so much.
Yeah.
Should we bring him back?
No. Absolutely not. Well, I mean, in the modern day Big Brother hometowns, what purpose does that serve other than to like
my entertainment?
Oh, okay. You know, no, I don't think he would do it. First of all, like, but like, yikes! Oh man, So yeah, that closes the book on the Josh part. We are going to cover one more episode here as we finish this up. And sorry, you just said that and made me laugh. As if anyone. Well, I guess Max would see that and care. Anyway, so this wraps up the Josh portion of this. We have one more episode to cover here, but yeah. Any last thoughts that we haven't said about the tidal wave, Josh Gardner?
It's a shame that he didn't win the battle back. That's my final thought. I'm glad. I mean, like, Leah's gonna come back in the battle back and have like a really fun story down the stretch, like really compelling, and that's gonna be fun to talk about. But damn, I wish we would have got him. Oh, sorry, I cursed. But you know, dang, I wish we would have gotten him again. Like, I wish he could. Like, because you think about like, you remember in season 2 when Greg loses and he comes back and he is just unhinged. Like, could you imagine how like this person who's already behaving in an unhinged way wins a battle back and comes back thinking like, this is my time.
Yeah.
like just comes back. That would have been so good.
To really close the book on the Josh Gardner battle back of it all, it was a slide puzzle again at the battle back, and it took Josh almost half hour. Yeah. So he was not winning that one. Yeah, I mean, now I can really appreciate it. Then it was really exhausting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I really like pat myself on the back that I ran this ship all by myself.
Yeah.
For so long, and it was a lot. I mean, I loved it then. I love what it is now, but that was hard. I was very glad when he was gone. Right now, very fun to appreciate, very fun to enjoy now because you can't piece the story together. It's impossible. Like you just can't. And I almost wish that this was a season that was on Discord, that lived in one place that we could go back and maybe thumb through and figure out. Right. But like, yeah, it's impossible. And you just have to enjoy the mess for what it is. And it's just a mess. And it's him just trying to play this game that he thinks he has an understanding of, but clearly doesn't. But dictates a lot of what's going on. It's just wild, and I'm glad it exists, but now I'm glad it's over. So next in the episode, in episode 3 now, we get Leah, and you can see the weight of the world has lifted off her shoulder, and she kind of vents it out a little bit. I got Josh out. He tried to do all this stuff. He tried to pretend that Mike stole his phone and blah, 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 blah. But I'm done. She's like, it's just over. He is gone. I don't have to worry about it. You know, she kind of does still have to worry about it because of the battle back, but she doesn't, you know, she's not pressed about it at that moment. Right. They may have even known a battle back was happening. They probably did. and she's just like just relieved, and you could see it all over her body language, the way she's talking. She's just happy she can now move forward in this game where she has good relationships with Max and Allie and others, and she's playing strong. And even though she's about to go out here, like she's just like in a really like solid place, she feels like. So then we get to the HOH, which Eric wins. Fun little story about this. It was once again the HOH entitled Deep Undercover, where everyone makes their own secret agent names, and everyone votes for their favorite, and whichever gets the most votes wins. And a really weird thing happens. Not as weird as Greg Wells weird, but like that actually was fun and like strategic and interesting. This
Right.
is just weird. So Eric chooses the name. I think he went with Agent Cody Banks. Fun, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
It ends up winning, which I thought was funny too, because
Right.
it, whatever, the creativity level's low, but it really upset somebody that this was his name. I'm going to read you the quote, and I need you to try and guess who said this.
Okay.
I'm honestly surprised you allowed someone to submit a name they didn't create but copied. At least I understand now that no one is taking this seriously if they voted for that.
I'm afraid to say. It was Sarah, right?
No,
Oh, interesting.
it was Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was probably my second. That was probably my second guess.
Yeah. He was so pressed. And I think he was pressed about it again next season because I think someone else also picked Cody Banks in season 5. I'll check that when we get there. But he was just really upset that
That's so funny.
someone didn't take this seriously. I'm like, it's a funny name. Like it's like it has some people like the movie and blah blah blah. Like
Right.
this is not crazy. Like, and he was just so pressed about it. And so then we get
he probably didn't like that it was luck based.
Right.
Probably, he's like his whole point is win, 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 win. So
yes, Eric is HOH, and not only is he HOH at this with that deep undercover competition, but this is the double eviction, which is at an interesting spot. I think that this season worked out where there was no Trey Robb spot, meaning that everyone would have a shot that was evicted would have a shot at the jury, essentially, or like there's no one that's going to get left out of the battle back and the jury. And so he comes through with a confessional, and Eric says that smart people are better than loud people. That's kind of his premise of this confessional, which I think is a really interesting thought because a lot of times loud people get the attention or make the storyline, or things revolve around the loud people. And he's referring to Jeff more here and Leah a little bit, because I think he sees Jeff as a loud person in this game, someone that's made a lot of noise, that's won competitions, that has dictated things, but it's just through brute force more than through strategic acumen. And I think that's a really good read from Eric here, and I really appreciate that. So he goes for broke, like he does not pull any punches here, and he goes for it, and he puts up Leah, and he puts up Jeff, and he puts up Allie. The problem, I think, for Eric here is that he doesn't he's putting up basically the entire game. Like in terms of the people playing, like anyone playing here, he's putting on the block. He protects Sarah, he protects Drew. Those are outlier people. Obviously, he's not on the block. But then you have like Kyle and Benny and Thomas is an outlier, like a B-lister here. He puts up all the top threats. And it's early for that. But like, what better time when you could take two out at once, and especially one of them in Jeff, that people are going to be happy with you for taking out.
I don't hate this at all, because I think I do think that the chance of him getting eaten in the next couple of rounds anyway would have happened, no matter what, if he did this or if he just put up like some conglomeration of Kyle and Benny and Thomas or whatever. Like I still feel like this result would have been the same. Like I think he would have, because he just, maybe this we're seeing more of, he just wasn't as ingrained as he thought he was, or as he needed to be. And I don't hate doing this to shake it up, the thing that I have an issue with is the fact that he knows that Allie and Max know each other, and I think he guesses that they're dating or
Right.
that they have some sort of familiar, like, closeness to each other, and he doesn't put them both up.
Right.
That's my issue. Why are you putting up Leah? You know what I mean? Or just leave Max and Allie off, because like, you leave them alone or put them both up. That's my issue with this. Is
Right.
that he
I think he probably knew that Leah was thinking about targeting him, so that's why Leah goes up, and he wants to beat Leah. Like,
yeah,
there's the relationship there that he just wants to beat Leah, and so that's part of it. I still I agree with you. I think these nominations are not bad, and I don't think going forward here is bad. He just doesn't have a ton of backing or support, and
right.
because and so even when he knows that Max and Allie know each other, and he tells people, and people just don't want to listen up to it.
Yeah,
Like, because Max and Allie were lying about it. Like, they
right.
were basically saying that they had no relationship to one another, which is really an interesting. Like, you don't see that kind of, you would never see that kind of thing happen now. If people had a relationship in any capacity in a future BBH season, people would know about it and they would be upfront about it. Like, you wouldn't lie about it, but because, and it's funny because everyone had relationships, but like these two outlier people who are good players on top
Yeah.
of it that know each other, and
They had everybody fooled.
they had everyone fooled, and especially Leah. Really, you see, especially later in the season, you'll see Leah working through this. I feels like she got, and she doesn't
Yeah,
particularly care for that. So anyway, he doesn't have a lot of backing, but luckily, because it's a double eviction, two of them have to go. Allie wins the veto. It was an endurance comp of some sort. She wins it. Max then goes on the block. I think he also wanted to protect Max a little bit because they were pretending, on Eric's side, they had some kind of decent relationship.
yeah,
And on Max's side, it absolutely does not. I mean, that costs Max in one very small way, and that's a unanimous win because Eric does not vote for Max. But whatever. But for whatever reason, Max just doesn't want to deal with Eric. But Eric is trying to have some
right.
kind of level of trust.
Olive branch it at least a
Yeah.
little bit.
And this is where Max is saying that Max would get the confession of Lee is doing the legwork to make what he wants to have happen. Probably some truth there, but like we said before, Max just pushing the right buttons, saying the right things. Hard to track exactly what Max wants and what he's doing, other than through the lens of people like Allie and Leah, because they're the ones that are giving more detailed confessionals and a little more out in front. So anyway, Leah and Jeff are goners. Jeff didn't stand a chance once he lost that veto. He was always going to be gone.
Right.
It was just a matter of, is Leah going to go or is Max going to go? And Max had enough. This is, I guess, some proof of the game Max is playing, that he's able to survive this vote over Leah. This shows the kind of game Max is playing. He maybe because his threat level was lower. Leah was just HOH, took out Josh. That's a big move in a sense. And was just you have Allie off the block here, probably campaigning for Max a little bit more, probably pushing. She doesn't want Leah to go here, but she knows that if Leah stays, that means Max goes, and she's gonna pick her then boyfriend over her week-long friend.
Is where I wish people like Drew and Sarah and Benny and Kyle were playing the game a little bit harder, because this is honestly probably the spot to save Jeff.
Yeah.
Because there's so much game left. He just lost 3 comps in a row. Yes, you're afraid of him winning, but save him, pick him up, get him on your side so that if he does win, that he takes you further. Get out Leah, who's just made this big move. Get out Max, who's connected to Allie, and you have Eric telling you that he's connected to Allie. Get him out. I think there's no way that they didn't recognize that Max wasn't a good player. This is a perfect opportunity to take him out, and it's probably one of the only opportunities they're gonna get in the entire game to take him out. So it stinks that they didn't think that. I mean, obviously he goes on to win, so yay, good for him. But if those people were playing better or playing more, this easily should have been a 4-1 vote, in my
Yep.
opinion, like to save Jeff.
Yeah,
So
that's a good thought. I think people were really afraid of Jeff, and it's really hard to shake that kind of perception. Hard to see the forest for the trees in that situation. It's like, oh, we
yeah,
got a chance to get Jeff. He hasn't lost a single round. He finally lost. We got to take him out. That's an
yeah,
interesting thought process to think, hey, well, let's actually scoop him up. He can protect us now. He's someone that's shown that he is a loyal
is
guy,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
very loyal guy.
That's the thing, like, he's not sneaky, he's not good at hiding what he's doing or what he's thinking.
Right. He's had public
Put him on a
disputes with
leash.
Josh. He's had
Yeah.
public, like, yeah,
Put him on a leash, get him in your pocket, get him in your corner,
and
and
ride it out.
and
Yeah.
ride it. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think people are gonna vote for him in the end, probably. Like, they're probably not gonna, so you can cut him later. Like, I don't know. That's just my, like, I wish that would have been something we had at least heard someone think about, but, like, again, we're not getting a lot from some of these people, and we're missing, and they're probably not playing that hard anyway. So
Right. So Eric says he decided to swing for the fences. Talks about Max and Allie knowing each other. He did swing for the fences. I don't think he hit a home run here, but I think he made solid contact. It maybe hit a double, not pun
yeah,
not intended.
basically. Yeah.
And got something good accomplished for him. Got people. But the problem is with Max still in the game. Now Max has this like ultimate vet. Now he has reason. Now you came after Allie, you came after Leah, then you came after me. Like now he has all the ammo in the world that he wants, despite he even then like still trying to save face with Eric. It's all bogus, but that's what he's doing. And then for the record, there's an Allie confessional at the end of this that we'll probably tack on to next next chapter of this because it's a little out of order. Happens sometimes. So we'll stop here at this Benny confessional.
Hey,
we have a Benny
finally.
confessional where he says something very funny, which at first on the surface sounds funny, but if you dig in, you're like, man, there could have been something here, like you were just saying. He's like, I've been playing kind of under the radar, blah blah blah, and then he says, but I've got me, Thomas, Eric, and Sarah, and we pretty much got this house locked down. What?
I'm so mad. I missed that when I just rewatched. I must have missed that somehow.
Yeah.
I just rewatched that.
Yeah.
That's oh my god, that makes me so mad.
Yeah, because there could have been truth to that. They really could have like Thomas, Eric, Sarah, Benny, throw Kyle into that mix, and you could really have like any of those people could be like the head honcho of that group if they wanted to assert themselves as such, or like, Benny and Kyle use those two as, your numbers. And then you have Thomas, Eric, and Sarah that can really like get a lot accomplished. And we'll see in the next vote how I think that, and some votes to come, these people particularly failed themselves.
Yeah.
When Leah comes back and Eric goes right back out. But that's for the next chapter of this particular season. It's funny that I think this has been a really fun start for this season for us to talk about. For a season that doesn't have a lot of story to really grasp onto, makes it in one sense, in a different kind of sense, fun to pick out those stories. This has not been a strategic heavy season because it's hard to find. But there's plenty.
I'm excited to see. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna move away from like the entertainment aspect, and we are gonna move into like kind of a frog march towards the end by Allie, Max, and Leah, and good for them. And I'm excited to talk through the decisions that they make, and maybe some like decisions that maybe could have resulted in an Allie win or could have resulted in a Leah win, and how we get there. Those will be fun conversations to have, but not going to be the most entertaining conversation, but we'll definitely do our best to.
And one person that I just thought about that I keep forgetting is here is Drew. Like, man, there could have been a win for Drew in this, and there's things I'm gonna dig up some fun stuff that supports that, because Drew could have also been in this group here with Benny, Eric, Thomas, Sarah. Anyway, just thought of that. But yeah, I it'll be fun to track like how Max gets to his win, how Leah also almost gets to her win. Some mistakes Allie does make along the way. Those are the main players here down the stretch. And it'll be fun. So it's fun to go back to the season, one that otherwise is just not
Kinda
great.
just it's just there. It's
It
there.
is there. Every series has that season in it. But it's fun to talk about. And yeah, so we will see you on the next chapter of Picture This. Season 4, we'll see you in chapter 2, where we will wrap up the season. So if you haven't watched yet, watch episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the finale. They're not super long, so it should be easy for you to burn through and watch those, and come back and check us out on the next chapter of this podcast. Until then, for Mitchell Stokes, I'm Josh Consalvo, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.